using and naming variables. So variables, how to use and how to name variables is going to be very important. You're going to be making use of these all the time. So you have to understand what variables are and how they work and when to use them. So this is a very important concept that you should actually focus and learn. So what are variables? So a variable is just a named storage location in memory that holds a value. Remember earlier on I said that our programs execute in our RAM. So for example, let's just say this is 16 gigabyte. So now we have a variable name called, let's just say h, and h is equals to 20 for example. So this h here, let me just say things that we'll cover in the future. I just want to use this illustration here so you understand how variables are going to be working and why proper names are needed. So now h here is of type integer, and let's say this integer values, it holds 4 bits. Yes, it holds 4 bits. So now our RAM is 16 gigabyte and we have a variable name which is 4 bits. So let's just have an illustration. If that we have to mark this inside this our RAM, you see that this h variable will be very tiny. This is here, this is that mark here, just a small dot that's still very big. So you discover that during execution we have so many things that our RAM have stored, and now this h will just be a small named location here. Let's assume this and call it h, and this h here can store a value, and this value that is being stored here is 20 is the value that is being stored here in this our h memory location. So now during the execution of our program, we can go down and maybe increment h by 1 and h will go to 21. So this is going to come and override this previous value here, h. You remove this, you discard this 20 and store 21. So this is just a named memory location that can actually hold a value, that is a variable or a variable name. So now this value can change, this value can actually change during the execution of our program. So variables will start getting things like variables and constants. So constants now are just values, or they're just locations whereby their content never changes. So let's say we have our variable here, this is our memory, this is our variable here. Let's call this variable pi. You see that pi is a constant, and pi is equal to what's that value again? Is it 3.147? Sorry, my housemate or homemade stylus is disturbing. Sometimes it just disturbs like this. Let's manage. I've tried to buy this in town and I cannot see it. So please, you know of anyone that can sell a stylus that can work on maybe a tablet, not the Samsung one because it will not work on my screen, that can work on maybe a normal screen, please just let me know. I tried making this in the house, sometimes it trips. So now those are constants. So pi is a constant. During the execution of our program, it won't change. So when declaring, you should not declare that as a variable, you should declare that as a constant. And now constants in programming, constants are always declared using capital letters. So I'll have pi like this, not this, not something like this, like pi. Oh god, this thing is disturbing. Let's just manage. So we'll have something like that. So now let's move on. So for example, we have things like age, name, temperature. So we discover that with these variable names, what happens with things like name, What are you expecting? You're expecting either the name of something, the name of a person, or the name of an animal. Age, you already know what you're expecting. You're expecting an integer value which should be positive. And things like temperature, you're either expecting a value in degrees Celsius, or although the units will not be indicated, but you know what you're expecting. So good variable names, you see, is already increasing the readability of our programs. The most important thing that you should take note of will be how to name variables, or the rules that applies when naming variables. So different programming languages have their different rules for naming variables, but the common guidelines are: the first will be that variable starts only with a letter or an underscore. With letters here, I mean either capital A to capital Z or small a to small z. Things like A, as this thing is telling me to do like this, or capital A to capital Z. So these are examples of variable or formats that you should use to declare a variable. And then an underscore. Remember, there's a difference between a dash. Let me see if I'll use a dash and an underscore. So let's say dash a underscore a. Do you see the difference? It's kind of different. So now with programming, variables can either start with a letter or with an underscore. So never use a number or some special characters. My use of programming languages will not support that, except for PHP, that a dollar sign is accepted as a variable name. So that will be the first rule that you should take note of. So remember, use descriptive names. We have made mention of this so many times. Why should we use descriptive names? Please put it in the comment section. Give us reasons why we should use descriptive names. Things like age, price, total amount, instead of X, Y, E. Why? I would love to know. Then no spaces. No spaces. So in case of things like, let's say first, let's say I have something like first name. This is not allowed in programming. This is not allowed. This first name is not allowed. So you can either have something like first underscore name. This is allowed. Or let me change the color for allowed so that we'll actually see the difference. First underscore name, this is allowed. Or we have something like camel casing. Do you know how a camel looks like? So let's say this. I'm horrible at drawing, please. Maybe that's why I did not do biology in high school. So this is our camel here. So you see that the body is kind of, or the head is kind of bigger than the body. Or let's say giraffe. Yeah. So, but it is referred to as camel casing. So with the camel case, what happens is, let's say for first, we have something like this: first, then name. The second word that you could have given space with, the first character of that word will be written in capital letters. So you see here that first, then this name is written in capital letters. So you see that it kind of depicts this structure. You see that it kind of depicts that structure. That was being referred to as camel casing. So you can either use an underscore or a camel case when you need to indicate that these words are actually separated. So once you start working, when we start coding, you see that a lot, especially for front-end developers and back-end developers, when you're passing the JSON data or when you want to send payload, you have to indicate that. So let's go to the next, which should be case sensitivity. So this one is also very important, because in computers, not in programming itself, in computers, age is not equal to this age with small a. Oh god, yes, this age is not equal to this our stylus is disturbing today. So this age is not equal to this. Why? Now with computers, remember I said computers don't understand these our high level languages like H is high level. To humans, computers understand things like zeros and ones only. That's machine code. So now what happens is this. So things like letters A, they have their code that corresponds to it. Now when the computer receives that code, the computer will be like, oh, this is A. Same as capital letters. So majority of the computers will use ASCII coding to represent these things. Like let's say you have things like what, maybe one, that. Let's say you have something. Let's just take 4 digits for example. 1 0 1 1. So let's say this represents. Hey God, how will I? So I have something like 1 0 1 1. So let's say this represents A. I have something like 1 1 0 1. This is capital A. So you see that this here is not equal to this. That's why case sensitivity comes into play. So you have a variable name like age, here. You have something like age, or something like age, and you try to reference that variable using maybe the small letter. That will not work. Your computer will display some issues. The computer, especially if you don't have that one, your computer is going to program is going to crash because that will not be defined. So now you should avoid keywords. So programming languages, they have some words that have chosen to be their keywords, and for example I have things like if, for, while. These are keywords that maybe majority of almost all the programming languages will have this keyword in it. If, for, while. With if being this for conditionals, for looping, while for also looping. So all programming languages will have their own keywords that you cannot make use of them for variable names. If you try that, your computer is going to, or your program is going to crash. So now we have these two options. Let me try to mark. So we have 1, we have 2. So based on what we have covered on naming and using variables, can you actually answer? Can you tell me which format is correct? Is it A that is correct, or is it 1? Sorry, is it 1 that is correct, or it is 2 that is correct? So comment that in the comment section. Then in our next video, we'll check which is correct. Is it 1 or 2? So thank you and see you. Before seeing you, please do well to follow and to subscribe if you are watching this on YouTube. Then turn on your notification bell so that I drop the next video in the series.